Now I try to not fall to hype, to marketing and things like that without watching some reviews, reading up on a product, and so forth. So when I had seen some YouTube, or rather Facebook ads for a wireless airbrush, I thought that's the silliest thing I've ever heard. And then I saw John Nenus on Ninjon using one. So I ended up getting one. And it was $79 from Amazon. Came with the airbrush, this little compressor. There's a few other parts, a hose to connect it to the compressor, and it actually charges through a USB cable, believe it or not. And my thinking was, okay, if this thing is just totally a piece of junk, I can send it back because it's Amazon, and no harm, no foul. And John Nenus is somebody that I thought, okay, I'm going to trust what he said about it. And here's why this little setup intrigued me. Now, I knew that, okay, this is going to be cheap junk in terms of, you know, it's not your top quality airbrush. It's not your top quality equipment. It's $79. I had to expect that. But what intrigued me is when I try to airbrush on camera, or if I need to do quick airbrushing jobs, normally I have to get up here from my main workspace and go over to what my wife calls the laundry room. I call it the airbrush room. I don't know why she calls it the laundry room other than we do the laundry in there. But I have to go over there to do it. Now, it's 15 feet away, but I have to go in there. I can't film in there. It's too tight. There's not a good place to put the camera. I've got all the stuff in there that I need. But sometimes there are times when I want to airbrush and I'm just sitting here working, and you know how it is when you're working, you don't want to interrupt the workflow. And so there have been times that I've just, never mind, I'll brush it, I won't paint it, I won't airbrush it, or I'll put off airbrushing it until I have a bunch of stuff that I can go in there and do at one time. But sometimes it's just simple stuff like priming or putting on a gloss coat or something like that. And I thought, I wonder if this would work so that I could simply keep it in here and have it work. Now, if you're wondering, well, why not just have a compressor in there? This area that I work at opens onto our kitchen, which opens onto our family room. So having a full compressor in here can be a little noisy for them when they're in there trying to watch TV and do things like that. So it wasn't really practical. I use it in here sometimes to film, but I do it early in the morning and when they're not up, and so it won't be a problem to them. So I thought, well, if this little thing works, I need to give it a try. Now, it comes with this airbrush, which I'll talk a little more about. The color cup can come off, and you can put these two larger color cups on there. So if you got some really big jobs to do, it can do that. It's got a cap for the metal color cup. This is an adapter that allows you to hook the airbrush directly to this little compressor. I found that's just really awkward to do. You could do it, but I chose not to because it's just very awkward. And the airbrush itself is actually not a bad little airbrush. It's a 0.3 nozzle. It works just fine. It's got an adjustment knob back here at the back. It's not the smoothest action in the world, but it works. It does what it's supposed to do. I've had worse airbrushes that cost more. I've tested worse airbrushes that cost more. So this is not a bad purchase in itself. And with this little adapter, you can get a standard airbrush hose onto it. So it'll connect up to other stuff. And also, that allows you to connect this up to your other airbrushes. Now here I've got it connected up with a little adapter they give you here and another one on the airbrush. It's just a standard hose though. It's not the Badger sized hose. It's whatever everybody else uses, whatever size that is. Now in terms of how loud the compressor is, if I had my normal compressor up here on the desk and this one so that you could hear them related to each other, side by side with the microphone, you would hear that this is quieter than your standard hobby compressor. But I'm not going to break that out over here just for that sound comparison. But let me turn this on and get started with a little bit of a demo. And you hear it comes on real quick. It holds a little bit of air, and then like most airbrushes, when you start blowing, it runs, and when you let off, it shuts off. Now, I ran this thing one time. I just started priming stuff, and I ran it for 45 minutes, and it never got hot enough that you couldn't touch it. It got warm, but it was not real hot. Now, my other compressor, after 45 minutes, you could cook eggs on that doggone thing. How they do this, I don't know, but this little thing works. All right, I've loaded up my airbrush with some Badger Stynylrez black primer because I need to prime these anyway, so I'm just going to use it to show, yes, it does work. Now, the manufacturer claims that it puts out air pressure at about 30 psi. There is no regulator, nothing like that. I'm thinking, just by the feel of it, that this is probably closer to 15 to 20 psi. But to be honest, that's just fine with me because that's what I prefer. Main thing is, from a standpoint of PSI, it's normal. Now, this is normal for the Badger Stynylrez to get a little clogged up. So I just open the needle up and get it flowing again. That's not an issue of the airbrush, that's an issue of the primer. I've just learned to live with it. But you can see it lays down a good even coat. There's no spluttering, there's no pulsing. It's just a good even flow of air. Now, am I suggesting that this replaces your Badger or your Iwata or whatever airbrush you have? Nah, not at all. I think the cases for use of this are, one, if you're in a situation like I'm in, where sometimes you need quick airbrush jobs, but you don't want to have to drag all of your equipment out or to the place where you have to normally work. It's perfect for this. I'll get these figures primed. I'll put on clear coats. I've been using it for those kind of things. Just quick, blast some stuff on. Easy to use. It's not loud. Doesn't take up a lot of space. That's a great way to use this. If you don't have an airbrush and you want to try airbrushing, normally I'm very hesitant to recommend cheap equipment for first-time airbrushers because a lot of times the equipment fails them and they get a sour taste in their mouth for an airbrush. But I'm confident enough in my use of this to say, if you don't have an airbrush and you've been hesitant to get one because of the expense of investing in an airbrush, a compressor, and all the other things, this whole setup is $79 on Amazon. I'll drop a link down in the description below this video where I got it, assuming it's still available. I don't have any hesitation recommending this. It works. Know that if you get it, it's not as good as, say, my Badger airbrushes in a full compressor or things like this. But if this was all I had, I know I could make it work. It's a good enough setup that I'm sure there would be folks who would get this and go, this does everything I need. So it's good in that regard. Like I said, it's not something that will replace what you already have. And if you're happy with what you already have and there's no limitations on how it affects your workspace, like if your workspace has the airbrush right there, you don't even need to worry about this. But like I said, if you travel a lot, a lot of guys travel and they build models when they travel. This is a great way to carry an airbrush with you. It's quiet. You probably need a jar for your cleanup and stuff like that. But pretty much everything you need is right here in this box. So I've been hesitating to even do a vlog about this because I wanted to use it enough to say, okay, yeah, I would even just say entertain considering one if it appeals to you. So I've used this enough over the last I think it's been 6 weeks that I've had it now. I've used it enough that I can say I'm pleased with it, I'm happy with it, and I'm using this in production. So like I said, I'll link down below to where I got it on Amazon. Hopefully they'll still have it in stock. I was surprised after I got it. The manufacturer The company that sells it through Amazon contacted me and said, "We'd love to hear your feedback. Let us know what you think." I gave them some feedback on it, made a couple of suggestions, and they got back to me and thanked me. So it really surprised me that they seemed serious about making this a viable product to use. So anyway, it's been really cool to have, and I'm glad I decided to spend a little bit of money on what I thought was going to be a cheap knockoff that I would just have to send back.